All right, let's bring in Dan O.A., retired Navy SEAL commander and former hostage negotiator. Great to see you. Dan, first off on this hostages. We see 2 yesterday. Now there's a big push to delay a ground invasion, because more hostages could get out. We're up around 220 at this moment. Will that be effective? Is Hamas playing a coy game? Well, this is why they did it. This is why they grabbed the hostages. It's their only bargaining chip, and it has put pressure on the IDF and Netanyahu and his leadership. We know that behind the scenes, the US is pressuring them to delay the offensive to reduce probably the number of airstrikes. You know, rightfully so. The not just the hostess, but gays and civilians. Your reporter on the ground was sharing, they're caught in the crossfires of this too. And that's done intentionally, so this hostage game is going to be played out over the coming weeks and months. And they are hostages, don't get anything wrong about what the current status is. They're held in terrible conditions right now. And what like we're hearing from the 2 grandmothers that came out, they're held in the tunnel systems right now, which makes even a hostage rescue attempt even that more challenging. What did you think about that when she said she was being held with about 25 other hostages? Because that actually gives me a peace of mind that they're all together, at least maybe not as fearful. Because if you're by yourself, and you know, Lord knows what happened. Yeah, no, I mean, listen, this is, they're probably spread out, and in 25, that's a lot. But, they're not in on one area. They're definitely spread out. Therefore, for obvious reasons, they're trying to spread out. You know, and again, we understand there's more than one group potentially holding. It's not under one chain of command. But, this is hostage terrorism. This is how terrorist groups negotiate with the West. This was done intentionally, in 2004 in Fuya, after a lot of the Nick Beer beheading, in fact. When the Marines went in on Fuya 2 and one of the houses where they recovered the remains of some of the hostas that had been beheaded, we found a Hamas training manual, and the title of the manual said no need to hunt lions when there are plenty of sheep to be had. That was literally the title of a Hamas manual on kidnapping and terrorism. So they invented this whole kidnapping in the Middle East, started in Lebanon in the 80s and 90s, and No, this is a playbook directly out of Hamas, all these Islamic jihadist groups, and they're playing it very well. It's a brutal, barbaric tactic, but has been very effective because I guarantee every day the IDF does not go in and start the offensive. It's a victory for Hamas, another day for them to prepare their defenses right. And Dan, this relates to the manual you were just talking about yesterday. The IDF played some video from some of the interrogations of the Hamas terrorists, and, essentially they all said Islam does not permit the killing of women and children, and yet they were told to go out and kill civilians, including women and children, and one terrorist. Told Israeli forces whoever brings a hostage back to Gaza gets $10,000, and an apartment one of the hostages was released yesterday. 85 years old. She did a press availability about 2 hours ago. Here's her daughter talking about what it was like in that tunnel. My mom is telling the horrific stories she's saying. That many people, a swarm of people, came through the fence. My mom is saying that she was taken on the back of a motbik, with her body with her legs on one side and a hide on another side, that she was taken through the plowed fields with the men in front on one side and a man behind her. There are a huge network of tunnels underneath it. Looks like a spider web, so there are the tunnels, and apparently that's where these people are, and that's a problem. Yeah, planning considerations for this mission are going to be complicated by the fact they're in a tunneling system, which makes it even harder, and again has been noted. Gaza is one of the most densely populated places on the planet. The fact that there is no friendly on the ground around. We don't have forward operating bases. We can't fly helicopters into Gaza without raising alarm. So launching a hostie rescue mission, which is critical, requires obviously number 1 proof of life, that hostage are still alive. 2, you want a 10-digit grid. You need to know exactly where they're being held, not just in a tunneling system, but exactly where in the tunneling system, because the moment you have to go kinetic and make those noises when you're inserting, you've compromised, and we can assume that Hamas, as they portraying these pictures that they're treating these hostages, well, in reality, they're standing there over them with AK-47s, and trust me, as soon as they hear something like the attempt of a host rescue, they will start killing the hostas. And that's why this situation is so so challenging for the host rescue forces currently. Yeah, so Dan, there's this new unit in Israel is called the NII unit, and apparently they have one goal, and it's to kill all Hamas involved in the October 7th attack. My question to you is former President Obama released his statement yesterday, and this is what he said in part. Hamas military operations are deeply embedded within Gaza, and its leadership seems to intentionally hide it among civilians, thereby endangering the very people they claim to represent. He went on to say that still, the world is watching closely, as events in the region unfold in any Israeli military strategy that ignores human costs. The reason why I set that up is because there's been a lot of criticism of Israel and what they do. So as a door kicker yourself, can you explain the human cost of war that is part of war? Listen, Hamas intentionally puts their own civilians at risk. That is the challenge, because again, it is a fight for world opinion. I mean, within 24 hours of the murderous display on October 7th, you had apologists around the world, you had riots and demonstrations around the world in support of Palestine. So this is a battle as much on the world stage as it is going on in Gaza, and it will be fought out with these images and perspectives of what people consider legitimate targets in one side of the world, which to another, you're violating every rule of armed conflict by grabbing innocent civilians, women, children, grandmothers, grandparents. I mean, again, think of the family right now. They've got their mothers back, their grandmothers back, but their grandfathers and fathers are still being held by Gaza. So this is a fight on the world stage, and it's again what hostage terrorism is the weapon of mass effect, and we're seeing that play out right now. Can you fight and win a war with values and beliefs against an enemy that has none? You cannot give anyone like Hamas no quarter. Yeah, you cannot give them any mercy. They have to be rooted out. Listen, the kidnapping Christ in Iraq over 2 years, there were 448K kidnappings from 2004 to 2006. And when I arrived in Iraq in 04, we were dealing with 31, then 43, then 54 kidnappings of internationals per month. It seemed like an insurmountable task, but we focused on very simple priorities like this. Neely Group is going to be, we had one simple, focus one rescue recovery of hostages, and targeting those kidnappers. And that's what we did, and by the end of my tour kidnappings were in the single digit. So IDF will be successful, but they need to be focused on the mission and give no mercy to Hamas. They've killed 5 top Hamas commanders, so they're on their way. They were involved in October 7th, according